Doug, earlier we were talking about how our work might be seen in the future. What do you think, what would be the way you'd like to see people look at your writing in 100 years? Or?
Well, one of the big lessons of my career is that you have absolutely no control over how people are going to react to or respond to your work. One of the books I did is Microserfs. It's about people who work at Microsoft, and it was written in 93, 94, published in 95. So like every single reference in the book is completely out of date. And you'd think like, oh, no one would want to read it. Instead, it's become the most popular in the backlist, and it's actually taken on more relevance than ever. It's about, well, it's about people who work in computing and cubicles and that Dilbert reality. How will it be remembered? I never try and be documentary about what I do. Like, I think one of the big misconceptions about me is that I come up with some big grand idea and then do a fictionalized version of it. When in fact, as I think you probably know, is you go through your life and you're just feeling these feelings. You're not analyzing them even. Like, oh, like if I don't, it's like an alien popping out of your stomach. Like, if I don't get it out there, then something valuable, at least to myself, is going to go unsaid. I think, I have a lot of pop references and analogy in my work, and up until recently, that's caused a lot of annoyance of people in the world of literary academia.
Yeah, which belies a certain prejudice almost.
Well, I come from the art world, and in the art world, as you know, it's like the emphasis is on new. It's like taking a form or idea, working through it next, and going.
Totally.
Whereas in the literary world, it's about finding something constant and then sticking with it, which is to me anathema. I reread things only after about 5 years after they've been written. Like, oh, okay. It has a mood to it. It's like a perfume or an old telephone number.
Definitely.
It brings back that time in history.
Well, I think you're right when you say that it comes completely from, completely out of instinct. You're just doing exactly what it is, whatever mechanisms in one's mind is telling you that this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. And I can draw a parallel with what I do. The same way. Like, I'll do a lot of self-editing in my mind, and I'll come up with ideas for works that, okay, that doesn't work, or that. And you'll always know when you have the image that it works. Like, it's just an immediate, the light bulb just goes on over your head, and you just know that that's going to work, and you've got no problem with it, and it's not like you sat down and, you wrote up the pros and cons and sort of thought things through.
I get so jealous of painters, because with painting, people just look at it and go, yeah, it works, or it doesn't.
Well, yeah, that's the trouble with writing, is you have to, not the trouble, but you're working in a sort of a standardized
It takes
form.
a year and a half to write this long document we call the novel, and then another year and a half until people actually start to read the thing. So it's 3 years. Your life's moved on, and like, oh my God, no, don't look at that. Look what I'm working at now. But of course, it's going to be 2 years until they see that.
Yeah, totally.
So I do get jealous of the immediacy of painting too. It's also what happens in books is you have an idea. Maybe it's like a really fresh idea, and it's your idea at the time. And then a year later, in a movie or in a book or a TV or something, someone uses that idea or had the same, and like it's going to look like you swiped from them or something.
It's not like you wrote it in a day and sent it to the publishers.
The one thing I've learned is that if someone says something funny, and in the old days I would have said, oh, can I use that, or is that yours? Now it doesn't matter what people say, I will never use it, because they could have found it on the internet. It could have been spammed. It could have been from Jay Leno.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've only had 1 or 2 instances of people telling me what to do for paintings, and it's always been something that they've sort of seen. Like, it's never been, I thought of this great idea that you should use. It was more, I saw these people doing something that was completely odd. And that's sort of where I draw a lot of, I've always sort of got my eyes open for just kind of things that hit me as a contradiction.
Let's get back to the Stations of the Cross, which you were talking about earlier on. You were, what, 23, 24?
Yeah, I was 24 when I took on the commission.
So you have a very well-endowed parish, St. David's Anglican, Vancouver.
Yeah, it was actually a private donor paid for the paintings, but that's...
Why did they choose you? Of all the people and all the painters in BC or Canada, why did they come to you think?
Well, it's still a bit of a mystery to me, but I know it was a patron of the church who wishes to remain anonymous, was I guess a fan of my work from previous years, and also being a devout member of his church's congregation, sort of drew that parallel. I don't know exactly why looking at somebody who paints McDonald's would think that
this anonymous and hence very glamorous patron knew that you weren't religious, had only seen your work, and yet this advanced series found you. Did you talk with them? I'm using the impersonal they pronoun.
Yeah.
Did you talk at length with them, or did it just arrive in the mail one day?
Well, I was asked in person if I was interested to do the commission, and it took me a few months to really sort of settle out in my mind whether I would take it on or not, because when you deal with a religious subject, there's a lot of toes to step on from beginning to end, and particularly when you do something in a modern setting, which was what the church wanted and what the patron wanted. So that element alone caught my interest greater than it would normally. Like, I initially just said no, because I don't want to have to go and get costumes and robes and all the sort of paraphernalia of those 0, 2, 3
grandparents in the family circus cartoons floating around in the robes.
Yeah, totally. So, but they said no. I want you to paint it just like what you do normally day by day. So I thought, wow, that was pretty cool. So